Captain Marcus Marky Daniels lounged in the command chair of the Earth diplomatic vessel The Polite Suggestion, his boots propped irreverently on the pristine console. The ship's name, emblazoned in cheerful blue lettering across its hull, had been his suggestion, an inside joke that somehow made it through 17 committees and straight onto his premier first contact vessel. "Captain, we're picking up an unidentified vessel approaching at high speed," announced Lieutenant Penny Rodriguez, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. "Definitely not one of ours." Marky straightened up, a grin spreading across his face. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears the neighborhood isn't as empty as we thought. Look alive, people, we might be making history today." After 50 years of peaceful space exploration, humanity had yet to encounter another sentient species. The disappointment had been immense, given the vastness of space and the mathematical likelihood of alien life. But now, finally, contact. "Putting it on screen," called out Communications Officer Trent Jackson, his voice tinged with excitement. The main display flickered to life, revealing a vessel that could only be described as aggressively designed. Where human ships tended toward sleek, practical lines, but this craft bristled with what appeared to be weapon ports and intimidating protrusions that served no obvious functional purpose. "Well," Marky muttered, "someone's compensating for something." The alien ship halted abruptly, positioning itself directly in their path. 3 smaller vessels detached from the main craft, surrounding the Polite Suggestion in a classic intimidation formation. "They're hailing us," Captain Jackson reported. "Excellent. Our first alien conversation." "Everyone remember your cultural sensitivity training," Marky announced, straightening his slightly rumpled uniform. "And let's try not to mention that time Dusty tried to make first contact with what turned out to be a space garbage scow last month." From the engineering station, Dusty Reynolds let out an indignant "Hey." "Open the channel, Jackson." The screen filled with the image of what could only be described as a reptilian gorgon having a very bad day. Purple-scaled with multiple eye stalks and a jaw that seemed to unhinge in 4 different directions. The alien wore an elaborate uniform covered in what Marky could only assume were military decorations. "Unidentified vessel," the alien began, its translator rendering its speech into slightly stilted English. "You have entered Vraxian Dominion territory. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." Marky's smile never faltered. "Well, hello there. Captain Marcus Daniels of the Earth diplomatic vessel The Polite Suggestion at your service. What a pleasure to make your acquaintance. We come in peace and friendship from the planet Earth, seeking cultural exchange and mutual understanding between our species." The alien commander's eye stalks twitched in what appeared to be confusion. "This is Vraxian space. You are trespassing." "Oh, I do apologize for any misunderstanding," Marky replied cheerfully. "According to our star charts, this region is unclaimed." "But star charts can be wrong, can't they?" "We'd be more than happy to discuss proper navigational boundaries. Perhaps over a nice cup of tea? We brought several varieties, though I'm not sure about cross-species digestive compatibility." The alien's confusion seemed to deepen. "You apologize? Yet you maintain your position? Explain." "Well, we can hardly have a proper diplomatic discussion if we leave, can we?" Marky responded reasonably. "We're quite excited to establish friendly relations with the, what did you call yourselves, the Vraxian Dominion? Lovely name. Very commanding." The Vraxian commander's eyes swiveled to look at someone off screen, then back to Marky. "This is unexpected. Prepare to receive a boarding party for inspection." "Wonderful," Marky exclaimed. "We'll ready our reception area. Any dietary restrictions we should know about? Allergies? Religious prohibitions? We want to make sure everything's just right for our first official meeting." As the communication ended, Rodriguez turned to Marky with raised eyebrows. "Sir, they just threatened us and now they're sending armed troops to board us. Why are you planning a welcome party?" Marky's grin turned slightly mischievous. "Because, Lieutenant, nothing confuses an aggressor more than genuine hospitality in the face of intimidation. Trust me, I've been doing this diplomatic dance since before you were assigned to waste recycling duties. They think we're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, observed Dusty from his station. Let them think whatever they want, Marky replied, rising from his chair. Just make sure the good china is out. We're about to make a first impression on behalf of all humanity. As the crew prepared for their guests, the Vraxian commander, Admiral Kro'thar, watched the human vessel with mounting confusion. Never in his 20 cycles of military service had he encountered a species that responded to threats with invitations to tea. Admiral Kro'thar stomped through the docking bay of the Polite Suggestion, flanked by 4 heavily armed guards. His scaly brow was furrowed in confusion, as he was greeted not by cowering humans, but by Captain Marky Daniels offering a tray of assorted cookies. "Welcome aboard," Marky exclaimed, beaming. "I recommend the chocolate chip, they're my mother's recipe. Though the sugar cookies are divine if you're into something less intense." Kro'thar ignored the offering, his translator struggling to keep up with the captain's enthusiastic greeting. "Your vessel will be searched and then annexed into the Vraxian fleet. Your crew will be processed according to their usefulness to the Dominion." "Well, that sounds like quite the cultural experience," Marky replied, unfazed. "But before we get to all that, perhaps you'd like a tour? We've got a lovely hydroponics bay that Lieutenant Rodriguez has been working wonders with. The strawberries are particularly impressive this season." Rodriguez, standing nearby, offered a friendly wave that seemed to further confuse the Vraxian boarding party. "This is not a social visit," Kro'thar hissed, eye stalks quivering with what appeared to be frustration. "Your species has never been encountered before. Your technology is primitive. Your defense is inadequate. By right of superior force, your vessel and crew now belong to the Dominion." Marky nodded thoughtfully. "I see where the confusion lies. On Earth, we generally prefer introductions before annexation. Cultural differences, I suppose. Fascinating. Tell me more about the Vraxian Dominion while we walk. I'm particularly interested in your governance structure. Democratic? Oligarchic? Divine right of reptilians?" As Marky led the increasingly bewildered Admiral through the ship, the Vraxian guards began cataloging technology with their scanning devices. Behind them, Dusty Reynolds followed, offering helpful commentary. "That's our basic propulsion system," he volunteered as they passed engineering. "Nothing special, just simple antimatter confinement with gravitational focusing. We've been meaning to upgrade, but you know how bureaucracy is." In the ship's conference room, Kro'thar finally lost patience. "Enough. Your attempts to distract from your imminent subjugation are transparent. The Vraxian Dominion has conquered 17 stellar systems. Your politeness cannot save you." 17? "That's impressive," Marky said, genuinely interested. "We humans haven't conquered any yet. Though we did have quite a kerfuffle over Antarctica, about a century ago. Turned it into a scientific preserve instead. Much better use of frozen real estate, wouldn't you agree?" Kro'thar slammed his clawed appendage on the conference table. "You mock us with this affability. Where is your fear? Your desperate negotiations? Your pleas for mercy?" "Oh, were we supposed to be frightened?" Marky asked, looking around at his crew. "Sorry about that. Cultural misunderstanding? Would it help diplomatic relations if we acted more terrified?" Rodriguez immediately placed her hands on her cheeks and gave a half-hearted "oh no. Please don't conquer us. Whatever shall we do?" Kro'thar's eye stalks flattened against his head in what appeared to be the Vraxian equivalent of a scowl. "I will return to my vessel and prepare the formal declaration of your species' subservience. Your unusual diplomatic approach will be noted in the official record." "Wonderful," Marky exclaimed. "We'll file it with our cultural exchange documents. Would you like to take some cookies back for your crew? No? All right then, perhaps next time." After the Vraxians departed, the senior staff gathered in the conference room. "Well, that went well," Marky said, helping himself to an abandoned cookie. "Sir, they literally just told us they're planning to enslave humanity," Rodriguez pointed out. "Yes, but they were very transparent about it," Marky replied. I appreciate straightforward communicators. Makes diplomacy so much easier. Dusty snorted. They think we're either idiots or insane. Perception is reality, Mr. Reynolds, Marky said with a wink. And right now, their perception is working very much in our favor. 3 hours later, a formal transmission arrived from the Vraxian vessel. Jackson read it aloud. By decree of Admiral Kro'thar, 7th Claw of the Vraxian Dominion. The species known as humans are hereby accepted into the Dominion as a Class C servitor species. Your technological contributions will be assimilated. Your planets will be administered by Vraxian overseers. This magnanimous arrangement acknowledges your peaceful submission and grants you protection from less benevolent stellar powers. Marky nodded thoughtfully. File that under cultural misunderstandings amusing. And send our standard diplomatic response package, the one with the tourism videos and recipe collection. Oh, and throw in that documentary about puppies. Everyone loves puppies. As the crew carried out his orders, Marky's facade of cheerful obliviousness briefly slipped, revealing a calculated shrewdness in his eyes. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command using a frequency that wouldn't register on the Vraxian scanners. First contact protocol Echo 9 Delta in effect, he reported quietly. They're exactly as the probes predicted, expansionist, hierarchical, and completely oblivious to what they're dealing with. Proceeding as planned. Over the next 3 weeks, the Vraxian confusion escalated into outright frustration. Human ships continued to emerge from previously unexplored regions of space, each one responding to Vraxian threats with the same bewildering cheerfulness. Trade offers were extended. Cultural exchanges were proposed. A human vessel named the Friendly Handshake even suggested organizing an intergalactic sports tournament. In his command center, Admiral Kro'thar reviewed the reports with mounting fury. They've established an outpost on Mxarli V, reported his second-in-command, Subcommander Vetch. When our patrol confronted them, they invited our soldiers to something called a barbecue and attempted to give them plants. Plants? Kro'thar's stalks twitched in confusion. Yes, Admiral. In decorative containers. They called them housewarming gifts. Kro'thar slammed his claws on his command console. They colonize our territories and then give gifts. What manner of psychological warfare is this? The reports continued. Human vessels allowed themselves to be boarded without resistance, their crews treating the armed inspections as cultural exchange opportunities. Supplies confiscated from human ships were met with offers of assistance in carrying them. When a Vraxian cruiser forcibly extracted atmospheric samples from an Earth colony, the humans sent detailed environmental reports to save you the trouble next time. Most confounding of all, 3 human scientists abducted for interrogation had treated the entire experience as an academic conference, peppering their captors with questions about Vraxian biology and offering to share research methods. Sir, Vetch ventured, there is another possibility we haven't considered. What if the humans truly don't understand conquest? Perhaps they are genuinely this, naive. Kro'thar's scales darkened in contemplation. No species achieves spaceflight without understanding power dynamics. They're playing some game. We must force them to show their true nature. Meanwhile, aboard the Polite Suggestion, now serving as the unofficial human diplomatic headquarters in Vraxian space, Marky Daniels was having an encrypted conversation with Earth Command. The Vraxians continue to escalate, reported General Helena Wong through the secure channel. Our intelligence suggests they're planning something more aggressive than their previous provocations. Marky nodded, his usual joviality replaced by professional focus. They're running out of patience with our dense act. How are our preparations coming along? The defensive grid is at 97% readiness, Wong replied. The stealth fleet is deployed at strategic points throughout what they consider their territory. The question is, how much longer do we maintain the charade? Until they force our hand, Marky said firmly. The Galactic Council is watching how this plays out. If the Vraxians attack first, we'll have legal and moral standing for our response. The general's expression was grim. And if they decide to attack a civilian target to prove their point? Then they'll learn why humanity didn't need to conquer 17 star systems to become a power worth reckoning with, Marky replied, his voice suddenly cold. The conversation ended as Rodriguez entered the briefing room. "Captain, the Vraxians are requesting another meeting," she reported, as Marky immediately switched back to his affable persona. "Excellent. Let's see what our scaly friends want to misunderstand today." Aboard the Vraxian command vessel, Captain Daniels was once again offering refreshments to an increasingly agitated Admiral Kro'thar. "We've analyzed your propulsion technology," Kro'thar stated bluntly. "It's 50 cycles behind Vraxian standards." "Oh, is it?" Marky replied with apparent surprise. "Well, we're always looking to improve. Perhaps an exchange of engineers? Cultural cross-pollination can be so beneficial." "We've also intercepted your communications with your home world," the Admiral continued, watching for a reaction. "Your encryption is primitive." Marky didn't miss a beat. "Cybersecurity has never been our strong suit, I'm afraid. So much to learn. What did you think of our entertainment broadcasts? I'm personally a fan of the historical dramas, though the reality competitions can be quite addictive." What Kro'thar didn't know what the carefully curated intercepted communications were designed to hide was that actual human transmissions used quantum-entangled particles that it couldn't be detected, let alone decoded. The communications the Vraxians had intercepted were elaborate fakes, broadcast specifically for them to find. "Your continued denial of reality grows tiresome," Kro'thar growled. "The Dominion has claimed this sector. Your presence is tolerated only as long as you acknowledge your subservient status." Subservient. Such an interesting word, Marky mused. "On Earth, we prefer cooperative or collaborative. Speaking of which, we're organizing a multi-species art exhibition next month. Would the Vraxian Dominion like to submit some cultural pieces? We're particularly interested in your music." As the meeting concluded without progress, Kro'thar made a decision. It was time to show these irritating humans the consequence of not taking the Vraxian Dominion seriously. The science vessel Curious Endeavor drifted through the gas clouds of the Persei Nebula, its sensors meticulously cataloging the region's unique chemical composition. Dr. Eliza Morton hummed to herself as she analyzed the incoming data, completely engrossed in her work. "Captain Bennett," she called out, "you might want to see this. The deuterium concentrations are off the charts. This could revolutionize our fuel synthesis processes." Captain Theo Bennett moved to her station, genuinely interested despite the routine nature of their mission. The Curious Endeavor was one of humanity's many unarmed scientific vessels, its hull prominently marked with Earth's scientific insignia, a stylized atom encompassed by olive branches. "Fascinating," he agreed. "Let's launch a few more probes too." The tactical officer's voice cut through their discussion. "Captain, 3 Vraxian warships just dropped out of FTL. They're on an intercept course." Bennett sighed. "Again? That's the 3rd time this week. Open a channel and prepare the welcome message. Dr. Morton, you might want to put together another presentation on nebula formation. They seemed almost interested last time. But this encounter would be different." The main view screen activated to show Admiral Kro'thar, his posture rigid with purpose. "Human vessel," he began without preamble, "your persistent incursions into Dominion territory can no longer be tolerated. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed as an example to your species." Bennett maintained the standard human diplomatic approach. "Admiral Kro'thar, always a pleasure. We're conducting some fascinating research on nebula chemistry that I'm sure would benefit both our species. Perhaps." Silence. Kro'thar roared. "The time for your infantile pretense has ended. You have 30 seconds to power down your systems and surrender." For the first time in all their encounters with the Vraxians, the human captain looked genuinely surprised. "Admiral, this is a scientific vessel. We're unarmed. Surely there's no need for 20 seconds. Captain Bennett's expression hardened slightly. "Admiral, I strongly urge you to reconsider this course of action. There's nothing to be gained by 10 seconds. Bennett exchanged glances with his bridge crew, then tapped his emergency communicator. "This is Bennett. Omega Protocol. I repeat, Omega Protocol." The transmission cut off as the Vraxian vessels opened fire. The curious Endeavor, with its minimal defensive capabilities, stood no chance. The attack was swift and brutal. Within minutes, the science vessel was reduced to scattered debris floating among the colorful gases of the nebula. On the Vraxian command ship, Kro'thar's officers chittered in approval. "Transmit the recording to all human vessels in Dominion space," he ordered. "They will finally understand that their charming ignorance of galactic realities will no longer be tolerated." The destruction of the curious Endeavor sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, a loose confederation of spacefaring species that maintained a fragile peace through mutual agreements and power balances. The Vraxians, while known for their aggressive expansion, had never before destroyed an unarmed scientific vessel of a newly encountered species. Aboard the Polite Suggestion, Captain Marky Daniels watched the recording in complete silence, his customary smile nowhere to be seen. When it finished, he remained motionless for several long moments. "Sir?" Rodriguez ventured. "Earth Command is requesting instructions." Marky's voice, when it finally came, was quiet and utterly devoid of its usual warmth. "Acknowledge receipt. Inform them that we're initiating response protocol Alpha." "Alpha, sir?" Rodriguez asked, her eyes widening. "Not diplomatic recursion protocol?" "No, Lieutenant. Diplomacy has just been taken off the table." Marky stood up, his posture transformed. Gone was the lounging, irreverent diplomat. In his place stood a military commander, straight-backed and steel-eyed. "Contact all human vessels in the sector. Authentication code, sleeping giant. Activation sequence, awakened." Across Vraxian space, human ships received the transmission. To observers, nothing obvious changed. The vessels maintained their positions. No weapons were brought online. No aggressive movements were made. But inside each ship, hidden compartments opened. Sophisticated systems previously dormant hummed to life. Crew members who had played the roles of scientists, diplomats, and wide-eyed explorers accessed secure lockers containing combat gear and military identifications. Marky opened a channel to Admiral Kro'thar's vessel. His smile had returned, but it was different now, cold, predatory, and entirely without humor. "Admiral Kro'thar," he said pleasantly, "I believe we need to revisit our previous conversations. It seems there's been a rather significant misunderstanding about humanity's place in the galaxy." Admiral Kro'thar had expected many possible reactions to his demonstration of Vraxian power: panicked capitulation, desperate pleas for mercy, perhaps even a poorly conceived retaliatory strike easily crushed by his superior forces. What he hadn't expected was the complete transformation of the human fleet. Where before the human vessels had appeared almost decorative, sleek, but seemingly harmless with their colorful markings and conspicuous lack of visible weaponry, now they revealed their true nature. Sections of hull plating shifted, exposing advanced weapon ports. Propulsion systems previously running at minimal capacity surged with power. And most disconcertingly, dozens of new ships seemed to materialize throughout Vraxian space, emerging from what his sensors insisted was empty vacuum. "Impossible," Vetch whispered, staring at the tactical display. "They've been running with masked signatures. Our scans never detected their true capabilities." On the main view screen, Captain Marky Daniels' familiar face appeared, but the Vraxians could hardly recognize him. Gone was the affable, slightly disheveled diplomat. In his place was a sharp-eyed military commander, his uniform now bearing insignia that had never been visible before. "Admiral Kro'thar," Marky began, his voice maintaining its pleasant tone despite the steel behind it. "On behalf of the United Earth Defense Force, I must inform you that your attack on an unarmed scientific vessel constitutes an act of war against humanity. As per Galactic Council statutes, which I know you're familiar with, we are now entitled to a proportional response." Kro'thar's eye stalks quivered with a mixture of rage and dawning apprehension. "Your deception changes nothing. The Dominion fleet outnumbers your vessels 20 to 1. "Does it?" Marky asked, raising an eyebrow. I suggest you check your long-range scanners again. Throughout Vraxian territory, cloaking fields disengaged as Earth's true military presence revealed itself. Sleek, dark vessels of obvious combat design appeared in key strategic positions. The human ships that had been playing the role of scientific and diplomatic vessels now dropped their pretense, reconfiguring into battle formations with practiced precision. This is your only warning, Marky continued. Withdraw your forces from the Persei Nebula, issue a formal apology for the destruction of the Curious Endeavor, and prepare to enter into genuine diplomatic negotiations not as conquerors, but as equals. Kro'thar's scales darkened with fury. You dare to dictate terms to the Vraxian Dominion? Your hidden fleet means nothing. We have conquered 17 systems. We will not be intimidated by theatrical displays. Marky sighed. I was afraid you might say that. Very well. He glanced off screen. Lieutenant Rodriguez, you may execute the first phase of our response. What followed was a demonstration of military precision that would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for decades to come. 3 Vraxian destroyers positioned to blockade a human outpost suddenly found their weapon systems offline. A dreadnought patrolling the nebula's edge discovered its engine core safely but completely disabled by microscopic drones that had infiltrated its systems days earlier. The communication relays throughout Vraxian territory simultaneously went dark as targeted electromagnetic pulses fried their circuitry without harming the personnel operating them. Not a single Vraxian life was lost. Not one ship was destroyed. But within 15 minutes, a third of the Dominion's fleet in the sector was effectively neutralized. What is this sorcery? Kro'thar demanded, his translator barely able to convey the mixture of rage and disbelief in his voice. This, Marky replied calmly, is humanity when we stop being polite and start getting real. A cultural reference you wouldn't understand, I'm afraid. From his engineering station, Dusty Reynolds spoke without looking up from his console. Sir, Earth Command reports that the second phase is ready. The Vraxian homeworld defense grid has been compromised. We can proceed whenever you give the word. Marky nodded. Admiral Kro'thar, I'm going to explain something that you should have researched before deciding to attack an Earth vessel. Humanity has been capable of interstellar travel for over 300 years, not the 50 we led you to believe. In that time, we've encountered 27 sentient species. He leaned forward slightly. Do you know why you'd never heard of us before? Because we learned early on that species like yours, conquerors, expansionists tend to target those who announce themselves prominently. So we developed a 2-track system, open diplomatic contact using ships and technology designed to appear non-threatening, backed by our actual military capacity kept carefully hidden until needed. On the Vraxian command ship, tactical officers frantically reported cascading system failures across their fleet, weapon systems locked down, navigation computers rebooted with unfamiliar parameters. Even life support showed signs of external control. Your conquest of 17 systems impressed us, truly, Marky continued. But humanity has been quietly monitoring and influencing over 200 without a single species realizing we were there. We don't conquer, Admiral. We observe, we learn, and when necessary, we protect. Kro'thar's posture had changed. The aggressive confidence replaced by the wary tension of a predator, suddenly recognizing it had cornered something far more dangerous than anticipated. What are your demands? He asked stiffly. Marky's expression softened slightly. The same as they've always been. Peaceful coexistence, cultural exchange, scientific collaboration. The only difference is that now you understand these aren't the pleas of the weak, but the preferred approach of the strong. 3 months after what historians would eventually call the Vraxian incident, Captain Marky Daniels once again stood in the reception area of the Polite Suggestion. The ship had undergone subtle changes, the previously hidden weapon ports now discreetly visible, the hull markings now including military designations alongside diplomatic ones. Transparency had become humanity's new policy. Across from him stood Admiral Kro'thar, considerably humbled but still maintaining his dignity as he prepared to sign the formal peace accord between Earth and the Vraxian Dominion. I still don't understand. Kro'thar admitted, his voice lacking its former imperious tone. If humanity possessed such technological superiority, why the elaborate pretense? Why not simply establish dominance from the beginning? Marky smiled, some of his old warmth returning. Because that's not who we are, Admiral. Not anymore, at least. He gestured to a historical display that had been set up for the occasion. It showed images from Earth's past wars, environmental disasters, social upheavals. Humans nearly destroyed ourselves many times before we reached the stars. We learned the hard way that aggression and dominance are ultimately self-defeating strategies. When we finally developed faster than light travel in 2157, we were determined not to repeat our mistakes on a galactic scale. Dusty Reynolds, now openly wearing the insignia of a military engineer, approached with drinks for both leaders. Our first actual alien contact was with the Tellurians in 2172, he explained. They were, let's say, cautious about newcomers to the galactic stage. They tried to blow us out of space, Rodriguez clarified from her position near the security detail. We barely survived the encounter. Marky nodded. That experience taught us something crucial. Species that evolve through competition often view new contacts through the lens of threat assessment. Show strength immediately, and you provoke an arms race. Show weakness and you invite conquest. So we developed a third option, continued Dusty. Present ourselves as technologically capable but culturally naive. Let potential adversaries underestimate us while we evaluate their intentions. Kro'thar's eye stalks twitched in what the humans now recognized as embarrassment, and we revealed our intentions quite clearly. To be fair, Marky said consolingly, 17 conquered systems suggested your approach was working for you. We just operate differently. The peace negotiations had been surprisingly straightforward once the initial shock wore off. The Vraxians, pragmatic despite their aggression, recognized the value of alliance with a species that could have destroyed them but chose restraint. The Galactic Council, previously dominated by militaristic species like the Vraxians, found itself reevaluating humanity's potential role in interstellar politics. The most remarkable aspect, observed Council Representative Tlaxu, a methane-breathing entity observing the proceedings, is that your species maintained this facade consistently across hundreds of ships and thousands of personnel for decades. How did you prevent leaks or breaks in character? Marky laughed. That was actually the easy part. We simply selected naturally friendly, curious and diplomatic individuals for our first contact cruise. Their reactions weren't feigned, they genuinely prefer peaceful solutions and cultural exchange. The military capabilities were hidden, but the human desire for positive engagement was completely authentic. As the formal documents were signed and the ceremonial photographs taken, Admiral Kro'thar pulled Captain Daniels aside for a private word. There is one question that still troubles me, the Vraxian said quietly. Your response to our attack was measured, precise. You could have destroyed us, yet you disabled our capabilities with minimal damage and no casualties. Why such restraint after we had shown none? Marky's expression grew serious. Because the true test of power isn't how much destruction you can inflict, Admiral. It's how much you can avoid while still achieving your objectives. He glanced around at the gathered representatives of various species, all watching the human-Vraxian interactions with newfound interest and respect. Besides, Marky added with a hint of his old mischievous smile, nothing confuses an aggressor more than mercy when they expect vengeance. And a confused opponent is far more likely to reconsider their worldview than a defeated one. As the Vraxian delegation departed, General Helena Wong materialized on the secure view screen in Marky's office. Congratulations, Captain. The Vraxian treaty is already having ripple effects. 3 other expansionist powers have requested diplomatic talks. Marky nodded. Good. And the Tellurians? Still suspicious, but they've agreed to formal recognition of Earth in the Galactic Council. Your handling of the Vraxian situation impressed them. Progress, Marky said, satisfaction evident in his voice. Have the diplomatic corps prepare the usual welcome packages. And make sure to include those puppy documentaries. The puppies again. Wang asked with a raised eyebrow. Trust me, General, Marky replied, his familiar grin returning in full force. In 300 years of space exploration, we've yet to encounter a species that can resist puppies. Some universal constants transcend the stars. As human ships throughout the galaxy continued their missions now with their true capabilities known, but their peaceful intentions unchanged, the other spacefaring civilizations found themselves reevaluating their understanding of strength and dominance. Perhaps many species began to consider there was something to this human approach after all. And aboard countless alien vessels, diplomatic officers began training in a new skill: how to respond appropriately when offered cookies by smiling humans who might, hidden beneath their friendly exteriors, be the most formidable species in the galaxy.